Welcome everyone to this session. I think it's time to start. My name is Annegien Langeloo and I'm a postdoc researcher at the Research Center for Talent Development in Higher Education and Society here at Hanze. And today I will be chairing this session, but I will also be one of the presenters in this session. We will be recording this session, so if you do not want your video to be in the recording, please turn off your video and your audio. And if you have any questions, you can post them in the chat and we will try to answer them. Today we want to present to you the research that we have been conducting the past year and will be conducting in the next year on the impact of the COVID pandemic on teachers and honors teachers in general. Can you share your screen again, Marte? Yeah. So we will be giving you some background information on what we have been doing in the past year, following teachers and their experiences with the sudden transition to online teaching. But we will also tell you about the next steps in our research, as we will be following the teachers in the transition to blended learning after the summer. And afterwards we will have time for sharing your own experiences as a teacher or your ideas on the future of online teaching for honors. And we are a team from the Research Center for Talent Development here at Hanze, of which Marka is a professor. Marte and Marka are also working at, or studying and working at Utrecht University at the Honors Academy. So part of the research that we will be presenting has been conducted at Utrecht University. Today, Marte, Marka, Wietske and I are present, but Birte and Matti are also part of our research team. And now I'll give the word to Marte to tell you more about what we have been doing the past year.
So I will give you a little bit background information. So in March 2020, the coronavirus hit the Netherlands, which forced Dutch higher education institutions to close their doors. And so we had to switch from offline education to online education just overnight. And it was a whole sudden switch. Well, as you might know, within honors education, community building is really key. But, well, how do you create community in an online environment during a pandemic? So during the beginning of the pandemic, teachers gave priority, of course, to organizing content remotely or creating exams instead of interacting teaching or deep learning. How to create community or to stimulate professional or personal development was not given a first priority in the beginning. So Marka, being the honors coordinator of the Geosciences Honors College, and I, being an honors student at the Geosciences Honors College, were thinking of how the program could adapt to this very new reality and this reality that was created by the ongoing pandemic. What we agreed on was that many students had to deal with what we call a cognitive overload. So there's too much information coming in your brain and it creates anxiety, which is not good for you when you want to learn things and want to be curious, of course. So we saw that online education was mainly focused on self-regulated learning. Students had to watch recorded lectures. And we, of course, understood that teachers really had to adapt to the new situation. They didn't know how everything worked. But for the students, it was quite difficult, of course, the situation. It was very much self-disciplined, as students had to work at home all day, as teachers also had to do. They had to deal with their kids at home. They had to make sure their Wi-Fi was okay. So it was a very difficult situation. So all those aspects, well, they led to, for Marka and me, that we decided that we wanted to we wanted to do a continuation of the honors program in Utrecht, but the setting up for the meetings we wanted to organize should be focused on the well-being of the students and on the content in the form of books and movies. So ultimately, Marka and I decided it was important to do this all in co-creation. So students and teacher together. And the Geosciences Honors College, it consists of students from all kind of study programs from the Faculty of Geosciences at Utrecht University. And well, we decided to ask the students of Human Geography and Spatial Planning in a WhatsApp group if they would be interested in a form of continuation, online meetings with all cohorts. So for us, it was especially important to that the freshmen who entered the program in February 2020, that they would become part of the honors community, which is so important. We were happy to notice that all honors students agreed to this proposal, and also very enthusiastically. We decided to create a program made in co-creation. And it was very nice. We gave the students the opportunity to share experiences, to talk with each other, to have deep conversations, but also to watch movies together or to read a book together, and then share your thoughts in online meetings. And the result was a series of optional online meetings with an emphasis on community building and content offered through discussing movies and books. And this experience resulted in an article Marka and I wrote, and this got published in the Journal of the European Honors Council. At the same time, though, the workload for the teachers was, and still is, of course, very high. It is not easy to learn new digital skills, especially when the stakes are so high. There was a whole digital revolution going on, and it was just overnight. And I would like to give Marka the floor to tell a little bit about how we thought about, well, organizing focus group to talk with teachers about this experience.
Thank you very much, Marte, for this first explanation of what we were doing in our honors program in Utrecht University. As you may maybe notice, I have affiliations at I work at two affiliations. So at Utrecht University, I'm an honors director of an honors program, and I try to develop honors education in co-creation with our students. But I'm also a professor of talent development in higher education and society at Hanze University of Applied Sciences. And there we really focus on research on talent development. And because of all the experiences within the honors program in Utrecht, I thought it would be really very nice to do also a research. And it was easier to implement the first steps of this research at Hanze University. And we started with digital interviews, and then we started with focus groups. And those focus groups were very interesting because in small groups, 4 or 5 teachers and a student, as Marte was participating in those focus groups, we had real open, in-depth conversations about the experiences of the teachers and also about their ideas of the future. And this was also one of the reasons why we decided to step up with the research and to go more into depth in what's going on among teachers during this pandemic, because we saw that there was a lot of attention for students and well-being of students, and several researches were published. ESO also had a plenary session with a lot of, I think 100 people joined in the Netherlands alone online to hear about what was going on among students. But for the teachers, it was difficult. They had to maintain their teaching, and they had to think about the future. So Annegien will elaborate on this.
Thank you, Marka. So we are continuing this research on the impact of coronavirus on teachers. Not only honors teachers, but right now we are looking at all teachers at Hanze University. And we are focusing on two things, actually. On the one hand, as was mentioned before, we hear a lot about high work pressure, high stress levels among teachers because of the sudden switch to online teaching. So our first research question in our next research is, how are teachers doing after teaching online for 1.5 years? How are they experiencing work pressure and stress levels? On the other hand, we are also looking at the transition that is now coming, because what we hear a lot is that everyone is saying that we are not going back to full offline teaching. After the pandemic, online teaching will become a part of everyday teaching, and so we will go to a more blended way of teaching and learning in higher education. So we are curious to see what the views and attitudes of teachers are on this, and what they need to make this transition in terms of professional development, but also in terms of time that they might need to redesign their courses and their course materials to be a combination of online and offline teaching, and but also to know whether they want to teach in a blended way instead of offline or fully online. So what we have done, we set out a questionnaire 2 weeks ago, actually, to all teachers at Hanze University, which is partly focusing on their well-being and some personal background information. We are asking them about their stress levels related to work, but also on their resilience. How are they dealing with, how resilient are they in difficult times, such as during a pandemic? We were also interested in their post-traumatic growth, because potentially the pandemic hasn't only been a negative experience, but has also could have led to more positive outcomes. And we are also interested in how their work engagement is after this 1.5 year working from home and teaching online. For the transition to blended learning part, we asked them about their perceived skills in online and offline teaching. So to what extent are you able to create a community or motivate your students in an online learning environment versus an offline learning environment? We asked them about their attitudes towards blended learning, and we were especially interested in how they are able to build community and how they value their context during online teaching, and whether they were able to create this community. So we set out this questionnaire 2 weeks ago, and we will set it out again probably in October, because then the teachers hopefully have made the transition to more offline teaching again, as they are now still primarily teaching online. And we expect that in October there will be more of a combination of primarily offline teaching and some online teaching. Next to the questionnaire, we will also continue the focus groups that Marka and Marte started this year, in which we will focus primarily on this transition to blended learning. How are teachers experiencing it? What is their vision on the blended learning, and what do they need from the university to have effective online teaching? Well, and we hope that we will share the results as soon as they come in, but right now we're still in data collection. Marte, are you still there? Because the screen is not shared anymore.
Yeah, I got kicked out, sorry.
Okay. We want to move on to a more of a discussion part of this session, in which we will ask you also to share your experiences and your views on the past year and the role of honors teaching, or the role of online teaching in honors education. So I'll give the word to Marte.
Yes, sorry, I got kicked out. Hey, we are going to start with an open discussion, and we will first discuss some statements plenary. So we will use Mentimeter. So I will ask you to go to menti.com and enter the code 24169143. And then Marga will start with the first statements.
So when you are in, you will see the question, I feel connected with students and colleagues before the pandemic and during the pandemic. Maybe it's just moving the spot on the line. And someone is asking if we could type in the Menti code in the box, I think in the chat box.
Yes, I will repeat the code again. 24169143, and you can also see it on the screen now. You can see it over here on top of the screen. Go to menti.com and use the codes. I don't see people popping up. See if this works.
So maybe the connection.
I did respond, and it now says, please wait for the presenter to show the next slide.
Okay, check. Then I will just do it this way. Let's see. So, can you see the slides?
Yes, I can see the slides.
Yes, great.
So what we do see is, but of course, most people experience themselves as well, that people felt connected before the pandemic, and that this connection is less during the pandemic. Interesting enough, when you look into surveys of institutions, say 2 or 3 years ago, and this question about connection was asked, people were not feeling so connected as they are indicating now. So sometimes I also wonder whether some people are making, this kind of dream about their feelings before the pandemic and what's going on now. And that may be a bit worrying for the future, because now the pandemic seems to stop, maybe even, or at least more and more people will go back to universities. We can start teaching again. And at least in the Netherlands, we assume that after summer we can go more often to the offices. And I'm really wondering if people will connect again and get this feeling that they have now of the way they were connected before the pandemic. So maybe you can do the next slide.
Yes.
Marte?
Yes, I can. Let's see. Yes, so you can now see the next statements. So our second statement is creating community, including students and teachers, is possible in an online environment. Do you agree with that or not? Because of course other strategies are needed for creating community in an online environment. People seem to be quite positive about this. What Mark and I saw in the beginning of the pandemic, that we really had to rethink our honors program in Utrecht, that including the freshmen in the honors program was not impossible in an online environment. And well, if you are trying your best and see what is possible, then it's absolutely possible to create community. But of course, other strategies are needed. Our third statement, Marga.
Yes, I have to say that I have a problem in my mentee, but I hope the others can submit. So honors education should further explore its options and strategies online after the pandemic. And I have to say that during the last 10 years, when I was on honors conference, when I participated in honors conferences, there were always a few sessions on online honors education. And most people were very much against it because of the community building aspects. And when we did the first interviews, I was very much surprised that several honors teachers told me, when you would have asked me before, do you want to go online with your honors program? I would have said no, no, no. And now that we are doing it, and I'm doing it also in regular education, I must say that it works out very good in honors, or maybe even better than in regular. However, we need this kind of combination, and maybe not hybrid, because that's for a lot of people, also difficult, but maybe we should create a kind of honors education that's partly online and partly at campus. So I see here now that quite a few people say agree, and there are also people saying disagree. Is there someone who wants to reflect on this statement? And please unmute yourself if you want to say something. I would like to hear from, yeah, thank you.
I would like to say something about it. This week I discovered that a combination, I think a combination is very good, because participation is easier online. We see that more students are able to participate in meetings, although they have a very tight schedule, because they can just check in online and participate from wherever they are, even in the train or whatever. So that's good. But this week we had for our first honors lab, our first real life meeting. So we saw each other in real life for the first time, and it was so great. And I see that connecting with each other, interaction is better, is more natural, is of great value. So I would opt for a combination, but I think that next year in our honors program, we will offer that combination to make it possible to join every meeting, but on the other way to build that community.
Thank you. Is there somebody else who wants to reflect on this statement?
I think what I saw yesterday during the session on pillars of democracy, which was like with an international group of students, and I thought that was a really nice opportunity that actually the pandemic brought, that you could just have like this course or a longer program, I think it was 8 weeks, in which you can bring together international students from all over the world. And I think that's a really nice opportunity for working together with students from different disciplines from different parts of the world. And I think that is something that we have really learned in this pandemic, what is possible in that way.
Nice. Thank you for sharing. We'll go to the fourth statement. So our fourth and last statement is, the sudden switch to online education made it possible for honors programs to work more interdisciplinary or internationally. I'm really curious to learn what your opinion is. So I see that internationally got quite a high grade, a 9.3, whereas interdisciplinary is much lower. Is there someone who would like to share her or his opinion? Please unmute yourself and go ahead. So who voted for
Well, I can say something about it. As Annegien just said, that the international cooperation is far more easy to do. And I think that interdisciplinary also has gained more possibilities by online. But I think this interdisciplinary part often takes place within your own school. And that is offline also very well possible, whilst international cooperation is far more difficult offline, because you have to travel and you don't have the money for it, don't have the time. So I think for me, that's the difference. That of course it offers also more possibilities to work interdisciplinary, but we had already those possibilities, didn't use them, didn't use all of them, but I think you have them within your own institute.
Yeah, I would like to add that when I look at my own work as well, the work in the research field as well as in the educational field of the last year, I think internationally it was more easy. So it's easier to reach out, it was easier to, also to create this conference, all kinds of work we could have done. Maybe we would have done it also without the pandemic, but it made it easier, the international part. But I think the interdisciplinary part, I don't really see in my own work that it, except maybe from STEAM, which is an international program, which is interdisciplinary, which was already in place. But new interdisciplinary work, well, maybe just a little bit, but it's more difficult to meet people just by chance. So you really have to organize it, and that can make. So I think it should have been more easy to do interdisciplinary honors work, But I don't think I really, that my work really expanded in that field. Although it would have been possible, of course.
Yes, thank you very much. So we'll continue with.
I see that Jacqueline is there. Maybe she is online. Maybe she could elaborate on that as well, because she has a point of view from the United States, and maybe there it's different. I don't know if she can unmute her mic.
Yes, I also see her. Jacqueline, can you unmute yourself? Okay, let's continue. We are going to, we just had an open discussion, and we raised some discussion points, and we understand that you want to share your own experience and talk about, well, what you learned during the pandemic. So we would like to give you all the opportunity to have a conversation with each other. So let's see if it's needed to split up in.
I would suggest that we just stay in this group.
Yes.
And that you can change your view to gallery view, so you can all see everyone who is participating. And if you want to and you don't mind being recorded, you can start your video and unmute yourself if you want to say something.
Yes. So what we like to do is to have a discussion with each other and share your, each other's experiences. And I have some guiding questions. So first of all, I'm curious to learn, how did you experience the impact of COVID-19 as an honors teacher? Who would like to start? Marie-Vonne, would you like to start the discussion?
Well, I didn't like it, but I think there were not that many people that liked the last year. But in fact, I discovered that I could cope with it, and that students could, partly could do it also. And for other students, well, yesterday I talked to a few of them, and they said, okay, it was very hard, and I didn't get anything from the online lecture. So it differs per student, but I think that in general, the honors students could cope with it quite well, and that made it for an honors teacher easier to keep on going with the program and with all the meetings. So, well, for honors, for me, it was easier than for the regular classes that I offer.
And what made it easier for you? I'm curious.
The type of student, or the attitude of the student, because the honor students in the basis are a bit more willing to learn from themselves, are self-activating, self-starting. And for the regular students in general, of course there are exceptions, but in general you have to activate them more. Especially first year students, and that's logical because they don't know what you expect from them and how to behave, and they come from the secondary schools and don't know how it is to study, and they have to do everything online. So I completely understand, but that's the difference, the type of students and their attitudes.
Yes, I understand that. I have another question I would like to ask in this session. Within the Research Center for Talent Development in Higher Education and Society, we often discuss, well, how will honors education look like in post-corona time? And I'm curious to your opinion. How do you think honors education will look like? Will it be more hybrid, or do you think physical meetings are really needed, that they are needed for real community building, or are online meetings also sufficient for community building?
I think it really depends on the teacher. I wonder whether it depends on the honors education or more on the teacher that is teaching. And maybe in honors education we have a different type of teacher. But I think that teachers that are more eager and interested in like learning these new ways of teaching and creating community online will also be more eager to try and keep this going, and to try to create new programs which are maybe more interdisciplinary or more internationally, or then that it depends on the fact that it's an honors program. But I can imagine that teachers in honors programs are more, it's a proeftuin.
Yes, yeah.
A laboratory?
Yeah, so they're trying new things in honors, and I think this is one of those new things that we can try and can explore further.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree. Yes. Maarten, do you also want to share?
Yeah, I think indeed, as you said, honors education is supposed to be or is a laboratory of educational innovation in a lot of cases. So, from that perspective, you could say that, I think honors has a sort of a task to try out what will help in this in this respect. I know from my own experience that doing things in a hybrid manner is very difficult, but that should not deter you from actually trying it, I suppose. So that is something that honors teachers could learn and also develop with their students, I suppose, because I think students, even more than teachers, usually are find their way very naturally in a combination of online and offline environments.
Thank you for sharing.
And Marte, can I ask you as a student how you would, what would you think if the honors teachers would now decide like part of the program will remain online?
So a few weeks ago, I had a very interesting conversation with an honors student from Alabama, actually. Was part of a project I had to do for the Geosciences Honors College in Utrecht. And so we discussed together how community can be built during a pandemic. And we both agreed on that it is possible during a pandemic, but not only in an online environment. So it's really nice to see people physically, to grab coffee with them, to walk with them, to really get to know them. If you only see the head of them and the shoulders and maybe a little bit of the room, it can be hard. It can be quite challenging to really get to know people and trust them with your feelings and your experiences with the pandemic, because it's quite challenging, of course, for your mental health. So I think that online meetings, as Mark and I have organized in March, May and June 2020, do help, but I think it's also really important to have some physical meetings, to come together in smaller groups, so it can be done safely. So yeah, and at the Geosciences Honors College, we also had a project in which we had to make city tours, which was really nice, and we were put in small groups with, I think something like 4 students per group, and we had to make our own tour in the city. and walking together with the student through the city and thinking of, well, what should be included in the tour and what should not be included was really nice, and was also an easy way to get to know students, fellow students you didn't know before. So I actually made some new friends, and it was really nice because I didn't see a lot of students during the last 1.5 years. So yes, that's my experience.
It's good that you like this interaction and that you like to meet new students. For me, it's worrying when we organize hybrid sessions, because in the I don't know if I can say it, but in the technical domain where I'm working, there are some honor students that have as a challenge point of improvement to be a bit more socially developed, to contact people that they don't know. And I see that hybrid sessions give them a kind of an escape. So they can say, last week, one was there and who was present online. He said, I was not sure that we had to go to school, but he was part of a group. He knew that he should go to school, and we communicated it. But for him, I think it was the easy way, and it was an escape. And that is a challenge for us, because probably we need to offer hybrid sessions because of, maybe health issues that still are there. So, and then, to detect, is there a health issue, or is someone just fleeing? How do you say it? Vluchten? Escaping from being socially involved. So that's our challenge, I think, for next year.
Absolutely.
I think that's a very good point. We have a few minutes left. Marka, would you like to wrap this whole thing up?
Well, I was just thinking about the things Marivonne is saying, because I had that same experience. Also that you organized with a lot of effort a session on campus. And for me, you can take away the slides, because I think that, community, one of the cornerstones of honors education, how to create community in an online environment and how to move forward from here are the most important questions for now, and in honors and also outside honors. And so teachers are doing a lot of effort trying to create on-campus sessions or hybrid sessions or blended sessions, and then students who could show up don't show up. And that in a way is new, because in a lot of universities in the last years, people were obliged to show up. You had to participate as a student to get your points. But in a way, that's new. 15 years ago or 20 years ago, nobody looked upon a list of participants. You were there or not, and your feet maybe showcased whether the sessions were worth visiting, yes or no. So maybe this new blended hybrid way of teaching will also change our perspective on participation of students in class. Sarah Hinterplatter did a research on the experience of time, and she discovered that some very motivated and engaged students, when they were at high school, they really felt that time was wasted. And interesting enough, when they were entering higher education, universities, they didn't have that experience anymore. However, when she went into detail and into interviews with those students, the reason why they didn't have this experience of wasting time anymore was simply that it didn't show up. So they didn't have the experience of wasting time in education because they were just, well, doing it in their own way and not participating in classes anymore, which I thought was a bit of a worrying outcome of this research. But I think we can also, well, say that it is stimulating us as teacher and as researcher just to go more into depth. Why are students participating? Why they are not showing up? Do we have to worry when they are not there? Or are they learning in a different way? So yes, it opens up a whole new avenue maybe of teaching, and to be also more critical upon our own assumption that you have to be there to learn. So maybe we have to say you have to be there to share, and you have to be there for your own development. And maybe, so things will shift, I think, over time. And our research is just one way of delving into this. Thank you.
Thank you, Marke, and I think we will wrap up this session with this. And in the next conference, we will tell you everything about the results of our study.